Now, a little introduction to my show. Back in 1980, George Donikian became the face of multiculturalism as the first news anchor on special broadcasting service, which is SBS Australia. He helped shape the style and content of world news on Australian television, and all this was followed by a 35-year career as frontman with national networks including Channel 9, Channel 10, and that's about it. But these days, George hasn't taken his foot off the accelerator and he has his hands in all manner of things. And speaking of all manner of things, I finally managed to lure George into my den, which is Studio 2 at 94.1 FM 3WBC this very sparkling Sunday. George.
Good morning, Rae Bonney.
Welcome.
It's one of the joys in life to finally do something that you've been planning to do for ages. You and I have talked about this. You've said to me, how do I lure you to Box Hill? Well, I said dumplings, but it's too early for dumplings. I wanted coffee. It's too early for the coffee shops. So it must be the music and the chat.
Well, how did I just get bestowed such an honour, really, all the way from Port Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you said to me, you want to talk about a couple of things that are happening. There are so many things now that COVID is easing the threat of this pandemic, which has mortified so many people, disrupted the world. I never imagined the world would almost come to a complete stop, but it did. And now everyone's hitting the reset button, or trying to at least. And that's despite yet another iteration of the COVID virus. And people are starting to get excited about wanting to do things. And we're social animals, and we terribly miss getting out and seeing people, the people that matter to us, the people that care to us, and the people that have really been like anchors around us, helping us, whether we knew it or not. And let me tell you, we discovered very, very quickly that we need people, good people around us.
Well, I've been very glad to have you around because we've had some really great chats during COVID. But I would like to challenge you on this global disaster that is COVID, because I see COVID as being part of evolution. You know, this is not the first pandemic we have ever had, and I've had my eye very closely on people and how they have adjusted, adapted, and been agile during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you look back, all the way back, we've actually reclaimed some skills and attributes that we had let go of during time, and we've created new skills and attributes as well during COVID in how we've adapted and coped and built our resilience. So I think that we're coming out of this in some really good shape.
As in any disaster or great calamity, there is always, and there are always, opportunities for a great many people. But, you know, people say to you, especially investors, time of chaos means time of great opportunity. Well, I understand all that, but I also feel for the thousands, the many thousands, the hundreds of thousands of people who've had to suffer, who've suffered because of not knowing what comes next. They've had to pay their rent. They've had to meet their commitments in business. So many businesses have gone by the by. All well and good to talk about bouncing back and being resilient and learning to recuperate. That will come in time, yeah? But what about the people that have suffered? And we've had an enormous number of incidents in domestic violence, and that's not healthy. That's never healthy. We have an epidemic in this country, and it's a cultural one, and we need to discover a way of actually getting into the heads of our men and our women and saying to all of them that we need to think.
We need to
rethink.
Let's not make this a gendered thing around domestic violence, because you know I'm very strong on that. So.
Hey, listen, I'm gender focused at the moment because I'm the ambassador of Partner Introductions, which is a brand new business out there that's doing something that's never been done before. So that's why I'm compartmentalising.
Yeah, so later in the show I want to talk about that. And, you know, my client base is typically men, and typically men who are in abusive...
We need to talk.
...abusive relationships. So, yes, very, very open.
No, I need that resource. I need good men to find and partner our good women.
This wasn't how I was going to kick off the show, but I always knew that you were going to have your
Take it somewhere.
your own version. So I would love to talk about that later. And
you take it anywhere you wish.
How these men who have been in years and years of abuse how do they go back out there and find
it's a good point.
love, So, but how we met, we met through two sources.
Yes, we did.
Steve Carey,
A great guy, and let me tell you, one of the fiercest
director of Channel 7, for those who don't know, Steve.
And before that, 9 and the ABC. Seasoned operative, knew his way around and still knows his way around. The ABC uses him whenever they can, because we need voices not only of authority, but people who are balanced, understand the enormity of the messaging that's out there. And there's been so much mixed messaging at all levels, whether it's council, whether it's state government or federal government. They've all missed the boat.
Yeah.
And that's a great shame, because it's 2022, folks. It's not 1951.
No.
And you would have thought we'd be so much better at this, so much more gifted. When we launched what turned out to become SBS, we were never meant to be SBS. We were going to be the Independent Multicultural Broadcasting Corporation, the IMBC, with ads.
Jeez.
And the commercial broadcasters got wind of the fact that we were going to run ads. And they thought, they might impact our bottom line, which is a no-no in commercial television. Don't touch my bottom line.
Don't touch
or
my
you're
bottom.
or my bottom, or you're an enemy. So they lobbied long and hard, and we were stalled. We were aborted in the Senate. And the Prime Minister of the day was Malcolm Fraser, and the man who was his most able ally and helped to make SBS possible was the great Bruce Gyngell, who was my mentor. And Bruce said to the then Prime Minister, don't panic, just invoke the Special Broadcasting Act. And with that one, signature move, we created this quasi-government entity that would turn out to be Owen 28, that's UHF, which everyone knows stands for ultra hard to find. Okay? So Owen 28 morphed into SBS, and what we see today is a very much boutique, really niche broadcaster doing some interesting broadcasting.
Do you think it's gone to the place where you imagined it to go, or
it's actually gone where I didn't want it to go. It's now not doing. You see, SBS should be addressing this question that we talk about, men and women.
Yes.
It should be cultural.
The ABC
all
won't,
the cultures.
won't touch it anymore.
Well, yeah.
No,
Well, maybe we should pitch something to SBS and say, time to go back to your roots. It's Rae and George taking you way back to the beginning.
Well, I know I'm on the cutting floor of ABC many, many times. They expect something to come from a woman about things, but no, it doesn't end up on air.
Yeah, that's People who don't know that would be alarmed, but people who understand how the television business works and how even all the various platforms, whether it's the commercials or the ABC and SBS, look, they're doing their best to change. That's my positivity. That's the optimist in me saying,
Or are they doing their best to be popular?
Well, let me. Hey, every politician's trying to do that.
Is this a political show?
So why wouldn't the television stations be trying to do the same thing? It's all about populism. You know that. And it's all about push polling. It's about testing the waters. It's, it never ceases to amaze me how many times the Premier is issuing yet another ad to find a media advisor. You can't be changing them at that rate, surely.
No. I mean, there's a reason for that.
And there's a reason, you're right.
Yeah, well, I know.
They're not cutting through.
I had a meeting with the CEO of the Australian Men's Health Forum the other day, of which I'm the vice president, and we were talking about the upcoming election and how, we influence at that level. And we actually have to come up with something popular, even though male suicide populates most of the stats. We can't go with that as a proposition. But last year, I think $554 million went towards women's health and zero towards men. And if men are dying at a rate of knots like that from heart disease, we see Shane Warne,
stress,
Rod Marsh.
Stress.
Yes. And
stress.
So why would we have to come up with something popular to get some buy-in or some support?
No, I concur.
That makes me eternally frustrated.
Look, we've had the same or a similar problem. The women's groups over the years have worked tirelessly to make sure that the pink experiment or the pink initiative to fighting breast cancer, was meaningful and strong, and it's done a fabulous job.
Agree.
But we also need to make sure that the men are getting some support.
But
correct.
Everybody.
It should be everyone.
Yeah,
but
and
we don't think like that.
That's where I'm wondering if SBS is still going in that direction of ultimate diversity, because as we pick up speed with this diversity thing, it's not just about what colour you are or what's between your legs. It's actually what's going on in your head and our freedom of thought as well, which I don't think is being adequately addressed.
I can concur. It's not. Forget about thinking. We can say with great positivity that's not where they're going. They've got their own problems, and it's about making sure that they are popular enough to get enough government money to pursue their next programming year. And that's how it works. It's about, and imagine the ABC and the SBS, two organisations that should not need to worry about ratings. Attend to your charter, fulfil your commitments, make Australia a better country. That's what you're there for. You're national broadcasters. You're not state broadcasters, you're national broadcasters. So do it properly. And what I'm saying is anything but that.
And these days global as well, because of streaming. People tune in from all over the world.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Especially
like they do to this very show, actually.
Well, I was going to say, streaming is the future. And the proof in the pudding is that Netflix and organisations that 10 years ago weren't around are suddenly ahead of the great film studios that we've known for the better part of the last 50, 60 years. So the future is streaming, Rae Bonney, and 3WBC 94.1 FM is doing just that.
That's right. And I know that I have people listening in right at the moment from America, the UK, Latvia, Mauritius.
And the only problem with streaming radio, no subtitles.
No. Well, yeah, that's something as well. They're things that are coming into...
See, I had access to subtitlers, and I even had the first sign reader.
Could we please not talk about that right now?
Okay.
I would like you not to talk about that if you don't mind.
Fine.
For obvious reasons. Because you're actually pulling my show apart bit by bit as we move through. But I'm loving it. I'm loving this banter because I've already had a few text messages from...
Oh, my God. We've created revolution.
Yes, we are. Chris O'Reilly, GD is great.
Oh,
Simply.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, Chris O'Reilly. Hi, Chris. Hope you're well. So, yes, pretty soon everyone will start tuning in. But the other person that connected us, there was Steve Carey, and I also wanted to give a shout out to Paul Guerra, who's the CEO of the Victorian Chamber of Commerce.
He's got his hands full.
Who has done an amazing job of messaging, I think, during COVID, for Victorian business.
He's dragged them kicking and screaming.
Yes.
Yeah, which should not have been the case. He wasn't saying anything untoward. He was saying, help us.
Yes.
And help them and be consistent in your messaging. Everything we've tried to tell you from day one. But look, two people that you talk about, Paul Guerra and Steve Carey, have been voices of reason during the most difficult time. And I commend them both. I say to them both, keep doing what you're doing. They've got their own battles. They work really, really hard, and I love them both. They're so important that we support them.
Yeah. There's certainly two.
And we saw instances of businesses, Paul DiMartina,
yes,
Chris Lucas, and let me tell you, they have felt the wrath of the authorities, and that shouldn't be the case in a 21st century. We should be able to say what we feel and not be hounded by their agents of justice. It's been a very difficult time for both those businesses when you would have thought they had enough to contend with.
Yeah.
But
I think that, going back to our little debate before about, was COVID necessarily an entirely bad thing? I think back to, November or December 2019. No one got that note in the mail to say, hey, heads up, a couple of, bushfires, some floods, and guess what, a pandemic that's going to last more than the 3 weeks that we think we're going to be locked down for. Yeah. So, I say in my line of work, it's all about preparing for change, because change is always going to happen. You know, we've always been in a state of change. And so if you're not prepared, if you don't have a support network, if you don't have a plan for change, you know, financially and emotionally.
I love your thinking, and I concur, I agree. But I don't think people work like that.
Well, they should.
People don't think like that.
But it's like, you know, you go back to the 80s when all of a sudden the word redundancy started. And, you know, manufacturing in Australia started moving to China.
Correct.
And then nobody had ever heard of redundancy. You started in a job, you worked there your whole life, and probably your family followed. Then all of a sudden, loyalty became a thing in the workplace. So now we've evolved with that now. So we've adapted to that change. So, you know, I think most people will always have a plan B when it comes to career.
Isn't that interesting? I never had a plan A. I never had a plan B. I never had a plan C. I had a job in radio, which
But you weren't always destined for media, were you?
No. I was an ethnic boy, and I was told. I remember I went to and did an audition at Channel 7. And they said, "Listen, we don't employ ethnics. You know that, right?" I said, "I'm sorry."
Could you say that today?
They did. They told us. That's what they told us. And I can remember when we arrived and we were about to
who's
launch
us?
the early days of Channel O.
Oh.
Yeah. The commercial broadcasters called us the telewogs. And the day goes, oh, they've been let loose on the airwaves. The world's coming to an end. Oh, look, we got all manner of rubbish thrown at us.
But when you say us, it's you and who?
It's me and the entire... Look, you've got to remember, when you're the face of SBS, I was...
But who else? Who else?
Everyone. Everyone within the organisation felt the pain,
right,
and felt the pointed fingers. And everywhere we went, I remember the first Logies. Oh, wow. Oh, the new kids are in town. Look, oh, yes. It took us a while to be, and I mean quite a while to be accepted.
I'm going to try again. Who else? Who were your cohorts? Like, I know Helen Kapelos, you worked with Helen.
No, Helen Kapelos was not anywhere in the scene at the time. She was way too young.
That's right, yeah.
I had Basia Bonkowski, who was just a dynamic young woman. She was a Polish subtitler until Bruce Gingell spotted her working, and he said, "What do you know about music?" She said, "Quite a lot. How would you like to host the Rock Around the World?" She goes, "Sure, why not?" And that was history. And there were others, great people. Annette Chanois, who was one of the first Asian faces that we saw. And people talk to me about Li Lin Chin. Well, SBS was so wonderfully diverse and understanding, they sacked her. And then they had to re-employ her when I put my hand up and said, I'm leaving to go to 9. So SBS gets an awful lot of pats on the back, but there are some that they got there by chance, and they don't always deserve all the kudos. They've done some tremendous work. Don't let me sell them short there. They've done some very important programming, but they stopped. They morphed and became, under new management, under new consultants, they've moved and pushed what should be a groundbreaking... Look, the late Ernest Borgnine came to Australia for the Logies.
Who's he?
And McHale's Navy.
Get out.
Yeah, he walks up to me at the Logies as I walked in. I just want to say, I've been watching you for the last 2 weeks. Never seen anything like you guys. That was Ernest Borgnine and what he thought of us. And it was evidence that if I ever needed it, that we were one off. In fact, Channel 4, Britain's brand new niche broadcaster, sent a team to come down under to film and find out what was so special about this multicultural broadcaster that would turn out to be SBS. Yeah, so we were like a real shock. What we wanted to do was give Australians, one and all, a portal, a window to the world, and they didn't want it. The grief that my management team got. If social media had existed, they would have terrorised us and me. I can remember my boss, the wonderful Peter Hanrahan, great guy, and Peter would say to me, "Don't worry about the mail. Don't worry about what they're saying." I said, "What's their problem?" They think you speak with an accent. I said, "Yeah, it's Australian, mate." No, no, no. It's rather put on. Put on? But there you go. In your efforts to be as clear and as concise and proper, it was an accent that offended some people. They didn't want me to say Thessaloniki. They wanted me to say Salonika. So my view always was, hey, guys, if you want to learn to travel the world, why don't you learn how to visit those spots and know that it is Paris, yes, it's Paris, but and we don't play with Paris. We never played that game. But for the cities that weren't Athens, like Thessaloniki, I wanted them to understand it was Thessaloniki. And if it was Buenos Aires, which is the most abused capital in the world, Buenos Aires, or Buenos Aires. No, mate, it's Buenos Aires. And if you say it slowly enough and people care, they can get it right. It's not hard. But we seem to have this little filter in our brain. Oh, no, we don't want to learn anything.
No, not down here.
Not down under.
Not down under. Now, you were actually born in Sydney, weren't you?
Sydney boy, born and bred.
And
eastern suburbs.
So your real passion or your first passion was sport. And still is.
I wanted to be a professional sportsman, whether it was a cricketer, believe it or not. Not bad for a Armenian Greek to play cricket. Those were the days. I wanted to play football, I wanted to play cricket, and I wanted to represent Australia, which wasn't bad. But seemingly along the way, I offended a whole bunch of people. Because when I got into commercial television, everybody wanted to find out who was I barracking for when Greece was playing Australia, or when Armenia was going to play Australia in a World Cup qualifier. Who would I be barracking for? And I kept saying to them, who do you think I'd be barracking for? Australia, always. Oh, really? Oh, how is that? They just don't get it.
Because we can't get our head around, but you're not from here.
You see, my father said to me and my father was a special guy, my anchor. He not only spoke 7 languages, which was extraordinary, he taught himself to speak English.
Wow.
Very good English.
What did your dad do for a profession?
Dad was an automotive engineer. But more importantly, he was a problem solver.
Yep.
And there was nothing that was too hard. He would sit down and he would do something that people don't do today. He would read. We don't read. We process videos now.
Oh, we can just
or you go to the you go to the tutorial
yes.
and it teaches you to, which is fine.
Yeah.
Great stuff. But we don't read. If you get a manual, my father would read it from cover to cover before he opened the box.
Yeah.
Today they rip open the box and they're into the phone or whatever gadget they're working with.
That's right.
Why isn't it working?
I'll ring JB Hi-Fi first and say this isn't working.
But Dad was the one who said to me, now you're in a unique situation. You have an Armenian surname, but you're essentially Greek raised, and I was christened in a Greek church. They call it the Holy Trinity, Aia Triada in Darlow, in Darlinghurst in Sydney. And I had a responsibility to be the best Australian, the best Armenian, the best Greek I could be. And to fall into the lap of Bruce Gingell, who needed someone who sounded Australian but looked European, was a fluke.
But did that burn brightly in you from a young child that you wanted to be the best of all of those cultures?
No. I just wanted to be. I just wanted to play for Australia. Yeah. I wanted to be a wicketkeeper, and for Australia, like Wally Grout, and like the great Bacchus. See, but Rod Marsh was only a few years older than me, so he wasn't. He was a hero, yes, but my immediate heroes were the great Wally Grout, Brian Tabor, who were the stars of New South Wales and Queensland, and Wally Grout was the Australian wicketkeeper, and they were marvellous, and I wanted to be just like them. And in football, I wanted to be like Ron Lord, the great Ron Lord, who was the goalkeeper for Australia in the 56 Olympic Games, believe it or not, at the MCG. And he was also the goalkeeper that led and carried Prague, which was one of the great NSL clubs or state league clubs of the early years of the game in New South Wales. and he is still with us. He's 90 plus years of age. He's joined me on Facebook, and we got to talking. And very rarely in life you meet a hero and they are better or as advertised. Yeah, and he's a marvel. He's making himself computer literate, and he puts up so many magnificent photos of that era. And I love him. And friends of mine say, "What a conduit you've got." I said, "Yeah, got a star, Ron Lord." And he is just
I'll tell you what,
magical.
you know, I call our Twilight generation, you know, is so underrated in what they can still deliver.
Well, it's only underrated because ageism is big in this country.
Oh.
If you're 40, you're over the hill. If you're 50, are you still around?
Yes.
And that should not be the case.
Well, I was presenting at a dating event.
Hello, we need to speak about dating.
So I can give you a bit of insight to this other organisation.
Yes, great.
Who runs on a formula. Anyway, I was invited to speak on behalf of men and dating, and I was sitting with a woman at the table, and we were talking about the subject.
Yep.
And she was asking me about suicide, and she said, "Well, all men at 45, that's where their problem is. That's where most men kill themselves." And I said, "No, that's not the case. It's men 80 plus. That's where we see most suicide." And she actually said to me, "It doesn't matter because they're almost dead anyway." She actually said that.
Wow.
I didn't punch her in the face, but I just gave her the eyes.
Did you? Well, see, that sort of thinking makes you despair.
Well, one of my best friends who I met here at 3WBC, Ken Lyons, who is probably listening in now, Ken is 98 years old.
Bless him.
And Ken is still one of the most...
Whip smart,
fit, healthy, and, you know...
I'm envious. I'm envious.
I need Ken to give me perspective on things.
Kenny, we need to talk. Diet, exercise, and everything else that goes with it.
Well, he's an ex-pharmacist, you know. He fought in
he's
the
on
war.
the anti-aging agents. I love it.
Now,
Ken, let's speak.
George, we're coming up to a break, actually. So, which means it's our very, very first special guest song request. Okay. Now, you know what they are because you chose them.
I do.
But you don't know what order they're in. So I play this game. It's just for me. I don't think the audience really cares for the game. But I like to give a cryptic clue, and then you've got to know what the song is and tell me what it means to you, okay?
Go for it.
So here goes. Kings Never Know.
I'm thinking Elvis, and it's Now or Never.
Yeah, so the play there, Now or Never.
Yeah.
No, Kings Never Know.
Correct.
Because he is the king.
He is the king.
The king of rock and roll.
Undisputed king. Yes. And Baz Luhrmann is going to remind us again of how special the king was.
Oh.
New movie, Elvis.
Oh, yes.
Coming soon.
Yes, my daughter, Rose, who's coming to collect me later, she is born on Elvis's birthday.
Get out of here.
Yes, so all of my children have been raised hardcore Elvis fans. He is the king of rock and roll and probably the most, apart from the company I'm in today, one of the best looking men I think I've ever seen.
You're very sweet. I think Presley at his finest was just, that's the cutout.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I've never heard of anyone saying, no, he's not. He was special. And I think you should play it.
And here he is, Elvis Presley. Don't go away. You're listening to 94.1 FM 3W. Presley at 34 minutes past 10 on Sunday, the 20th of March. Can you believe it, George? All the way into March.
Look, right now there's a guy called Baz Luhrmann, and he's smiling from ear to ear saying, Rae Bonney, thank you for pumping up my new film, Elvis.
Yes. Will we be able to see that at Gold Class?
I think absolutely, and we should make a night of it. And maybe grab some 3WBC listeners and make it a prize. What do you think?
Well, no, make them pay for us.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. I like the way you think.
Like
this is good. Compare notes. Well done, Rae Bonney.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney and George Donikian, a Sydney-born son of Greek-Armenian migrants whose first love is sport, particularly
huge sport,
soccer. But you talked a bit about cricket then. But with respect to your sport and your passion, tell us about... has that ever gotten you into trouble in the media? something about flares in 2005.
Oh, yes. I had the misfortune and the good fortune. I was president of South Melbourne in those days, and I reached out with the then president of the Preston Lions Football Club. It was a derby, a huge affair between two communities that love their game, and the bragging rights are everything. And it was being played at Lakeside or Bob Jane Stadium at the time. And we had spent the week with the police, making sure that they knew what was required and that we knew what we required. And I said to the police, look, we're going to make it easier for everyone. I'm going to invite some of the marshals from the Preston Lions to join us. And together, the spirit of togetherness, we will marshal both sides of the fans, and it'll be seamless. Only problem was, one marshal got very excited when the fireworks started. And when I say fireworks, I'm talking about all those people that go and find used or out-of-date flares on the marinas around our coastline and bring them to the football and then release them for fun. They do it.
OH&S would have something to say about that.
Well, and that's why the police got excited when they saw it. And I went out with the president of the Preston Lions to say to the fans, calm down, don't be silly. We want the game to go ahead. And, of course, you know what happens when people get excited. Yeah. The last thing they want to do is accommodate you or listen to you. Yeah. So famous scenes of me and the president, and I think it's on YouTube and it's gone around about 1 million times. And lo and behold, the fans got so excited they were shaking the fence. The fence collapses from good old-fashioned wear and tear and corrosion. And some of the fans spill onto the ground, which prompt the police to think, oh, this must be a riot. And they charge with the horses. So I have to front the media on the Monday saying, how many of you were here yesterday to see what happened? And they went, nobody. Nobody put their hands up. So why do you think it was a riot? Because the police told us it was a riot. I said, no, it wasn't. It was a series of circumstances that culminated in a police charge that really had nothing to do with... Anyway, you know what happens. Yeah. The media is always right, and you're always wrong. And I was told by Channel 10 at the time, do you want to be president of South Melbourne or you want to work for the Channel 10 newsroom? Okay, thanks very much, management. So I resigned my commission and stayed with 10 for a further 10 years or so. So there you go. The things you learn in life.
Yeah. Do you feel that you made the right decision there?
Oh, at the time, I did what I thought was fair for our fans and for the safety of everyone involved. I cared for both clubs. Look, I'm the only time I care about competition is when the whistle goes, right? Between the beginning of the game and the end of the game, I'm ferocious for my team, whatever that team is. After that, I support all the clubs. I've been in this game and this sport and all sport forever. I want a healthy A-League. I want a healthy A-League women's. I want a healthy AFL. I want to see the Sheffield Shield bouncing around and all the teams being combative and competitive. And that applies to any sport. I don't like to see, things just hanging and withering on the vine. I don't propose to do that. So why would I let anything else around me go that way? So when I'm off the game, I support every team in the competition. People say to me, you can't possibly do that. Yes, I do. I'm the chair of FNR, Football Nation Radio. And one of our responsibilities is to train the next generation broadcasters, men and women, to be fair and respectful and at the same time engaging. Well, the only way to do that is to understand that you're supporting the game.
Yes.
The game comes first. And from then, you allow the other things to intrude or come into your field of vision. But for me, it's about educating people. And that's what we wanted to do at SPS. That's what we wanted to do in the newsroom. And that's why we did the news in the fashion that we did, that startled a whole bunch of people. And nothing's changed. I've just taken different challenges on. And that's why I'm an ambassador for the Carlton Football Club, an ambassador for the Melbourne City Football Club. And people who are Victory fans go, why? Well, mate, hey, because I want the code to be buoyant. I'm a
Yes.
Tottenham Hotspur fan. And people say to me, how can you be a Spurs fan? Well, I was a Spurs fan from the early 60s. I remember seeing Spurs live on the ABC at 4 o'clock in the morning playing in an FA Cup final, and Mum and Dad had allowed me to stay up. And it was in black and white. I didn't know what the colours of Tottenham Hotspur were until we went to colour, which was quite a few years later.
That's right. Well, it's interesting, that what you've just been talking about, how you get portrayed and what people's expectations are of you. And I think very famously you were portrayed by Steve Vizard on Fast Forward.
Yeah.
And
as the meticulously authentic subtitler and professional accommodator of language. Is that how it works?
Yes, but I know you've got some stories to tell about, how, again, you were recognised, that character was recognised as perhaps actually being you.
Well, it's actually really bizarre. Graham Kennedy, when I left SBS and went and joined Nine, Vizard hadn't come to air yet, but Channel 9 had the rights to the television show that's based on the Vizard show. Or was sorry.
Fast Forward.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
There was a show on that Channel 9 owned the rights, but never showed it. And of course, what the television stations do, they have access to those programs, but they can't broadcast them. So Vizard had watched this American show, this late-night American show, and they modelled their whole show on that program. And when they needed some colour and movement when they started the Vizard show, and I had become this larger-than-life character that they decided they were going to create a fictional character, George Donikian or whatever it was, and he would shave his moustache, he would shave his hair, he would shave his nether regions, and it all emanated from one incident at Channel 9. When I left SBS and went to Channel 9, Graham Kennedy said to me, "Love what you're doing. Why don't you come and sit next to me?" I said, No, I don't want to be anybody's second banana. I don't believe we can have fun with news. I'll stay in the newsroom and read the news for you. Okay. I said, and by the way, I'm going to shave my mo. And Graham said, why would you do that? I said, because I don't want anybody to think we were SBS. I want us to be clear. I want to hit the refresh button. I want to be a brand new character. And that was my mistake, wasn't it? Because I said to Graham, who was the executive producer, I'm going to shave my mo. So what do you think he did? Covertly, he put a camera into the makeup area where I went to shave. And he filmed the whole thing.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And then he proceeds to show that before he goes to the news to go, and now as we do each and every night, we cross to the National 9 newsroom and George Donikian. Before that, there's a little surprise for you. This happened earlier in the day, and he shows me going, shaving. And ladies and gentlemen, sans moustache, here's George Donikian. Well, that was the clue, and that was the cue for Vizard and his team of writers to go, oh, have we got a character for you? And that was the skit that they created and ran on their soon-to-be Fast Forward program. And people to this day walk up to me and go, I loved you on Fast Forward. And I don't have the courage to say to them, it wasn't me, it was Vizard pretending to be me. Yeah. But Kennedy said to me, don't be angry with Vizard. I was furious when I first saw it because I thought, they're having a go at us. It's a free kick. I don't like free kicks. Yeah? Only person who can do that is a referee. I don't want you to take a free kick at us. Graham said, pause, think long and hard. Long after we're gone, you're going to be a legend. Legends, schmedgen, I don't want it.
Yeah.
He said, no, you'll be fine. And Graham's long gone. Vizard's no longer on air. Fast Forward's not there, but people are running that video, and whenever I front somewhere and they go, wasn't that you on Fast Forward? I go, yes, of course it was. And now there's another episode that we heard recently with George Donikian not being in the very best of health. And he and I worked together at Channel 9. We did the Today Show together. We both had moustaches. We both had dark hair, and we both worked with Liz Hayes.
Ah.
And of course, in those days, people confused us. They couldn't tell whether I was George Negus or George Donikian because they thought Donikian was too hard to say. And I got a T-shirt from George that says he's not George Donikian. So there have been so many characters that have arisen, fictional and otherwise, that have been part of our story.
Well, it's such a long... I mean, you're on for what, how many years?
Long time. And the best part was when I arrived in Melbourne in 98, 99, I went to Riva for a New Year's Eve gig, and 30 or 40 young Italian boys and girls rocked up and said, "Can we have a photo?" And I thought, oh, how nice.
Yeah.
They remember.
Well, especially in Melbourne.
Yeah. And as the photos were being taken, I could hear one of the girls go, "I love his book on Tuscany." And I went, oh, they think I'm George Negus. So I sat there, I signed all the autographs. They said, "Is there another book too coming?" I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact, there is in a couple of months." And first thing I did Monday, I rang George and his wife, Kirsty, and said, "Can I speak to the master?" She goes, "Sure, great to hear from you. What have you got for us?" I'll tell George. And I rang George. I said, "Georgie, is there a book two of Tuscany come?" Absolutely. As a matter of fact, yes. Great. By the way, I signed 50 autographs for you the other night. And don't worry, if you see the photos, it's George Donikian or Donigas with all your fans, George.
And did you tell him he had a 2-month timeline on the release?
Yeah. It was a matter of months later that book two from George Negus.
I'm going to look it up. Love Tuscany.
Check it out.
Now, your beautiful wife, Di.
Yes.
Didn't she dress Steve Vizard?
She did. And now she just dresses me.
Well, what did
She's
she do
done the
Is it great? Is it great?
Fantastic, huh?
Well, you got red sneakers on.
Yes. Fashion conscious.
Is she listening in today?
She is.
Oh, hi,
She is.
Di.
Well, she's one of the inspirational pieces that have come up with the idea of partner introductions.
Yes, I saw that.
And they've used their resource. They're all executive search. Sorry, 2 of the 3 partners, 3 smart women, thought during the midst of COVID, what do we do? They can't be executive search specialists because part of being an executive search specialist is to identify the best talent anywhere in the world and bring them to the company that needs them, right? You don't find the best available, you find the best. So her strength and her gift, along with her partner, Tracy Whitaker, is they're both executive search specialists. So they find the best. And they do it in a forensic way, they do it in a systematic way, and they have spent 20, 30 years doing what they do. And they thought, you know what? If we can find executives, COOs, CEOs, and others, why can't we find men and women for each other?
Or men and men, or women and women. Do you do both?
Hey, I haven't broached that subject with them, but if they want to, and Rae Bonney, you're welcome to offer that up to them. They're building this new platform. It's called Partenaire, which is the French.
Which again, you've skipped a whole segment ahead in my show, but thank you. We'll go with this. We'll go with this. Thank you.
And what it is, it's using all the technology and, more importantly, all the ideas. That is confidentiality. CEO. The last thing a CEO wants to do is sit at a bar at 3 a.m. and find a partner. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm one of those people. I looked at that. I wonder if I could be a customer. I work in the men's health space. Can I meet a man? Never.
Isn't that interesting?
No.
Isn't that it? You work in a male-dominated space, and you can't find a man.
No.
Maybe you intimidate them by being way too smart.
Do you think I'm intimidating, George?
No. I'm just reasoning what men do.
Yes.
I think from a male perspective, and this is why I'm the ambassador, and we use this little thing called Men Speaking Frankly, and we have guests. I'm hoping to get Dr. Peter Larkin on board to speak to us. We've got some tremendous characters who've come in and said, "Yeah, we'll speak about the challenges that men have," and they talk about anything and everything. And we're using it as a series of vignettes to run out and build the platform.
Well, I noticed that because given it's kind of it's an open platform.
Correct.
But the podcasts that you've been doing, which are called
Men Speaking Frankly.
Speaking Frankly, are all about men not doing well. I think, men not talking.
Yep.
Do men listen?
Yep.
And I find that a little bit grating all the time, that we always just go to this narrative that men aren't good enough or men need to step up.
We are trying to spark their interest and open them up to thinking a little differently.
But men do speak, and men do show emotion.
They do.
And I work with those men all the time, and I'm here advocating for them. And so I do want to challenge that.
Why don't we get you on the segment and get a couple of other men and cover some of the territory? Because for us, look, the whole point
but do you
about
see
this
what I'm
is
saying?
confidential.
I just
100%.
want to stay with that just for a minute, because I think it's really important that if we are going to make change around relationships, that we are addressing both genders.
100%.
Whatever match that is, that we're respecting it and that we're pumping it up. Because, again, I had three clients yesterday, three men.
Yep.
All men cried. All men showed emotion.
Absolutely.
All men opened up, because I created an environment for them.
And that's what we need to do.
That preserves dignity, pride, and most of all, masculinity. And we really, really miss that with emasculating men by saying they're not good enough, or boys, we raise boys. I mean, you watch a lot of sport.
Correct.
Our boys go out onto the ground and they fight. And because men are designed to be risk takers.
Let me tell you, Kim Hallis, Tracy Whitaker, and Di came together as this trio, fearsome trio, to create this platform. Kim Hallis's son, who is one of the most magnificently gifted DJs on the planet, travels the world and doing a fabulous job. COVID set them down a little bit, but they're back up. Tracy's got men in her life, sons. She has daughters. She has a partner now who's a fabulous guy. He's the honorary consul for the Netherlands in Australia. And they cover territory. Now, the girls have said to me, what we want to do is be the opposite to the online businesses. And of course, the online businesses, you get on, it's, a sweep to the left, a switch to the right, whatever it is. They want to do it in the most professional way possible. So they're using the confidentiality that they've learnt in the executive search. They're using all the navigation tools that they have to access men and women around the world. And the other thing is listening to the conversations when the candidates are speaking to one another. And of course, I can't, I don't want to find out the fine details. But sometimes you hear them, yes, I'll leave Queensland and come down if there's the right partner. So there are people out there who do clamour for the social contact and the intimacy, and they crave it.
That's why people want to be in love, and they want to be in love.
I think all of us crave intimacy.
Yeah. Oh,
not in that way. Real intimacy where you can share your thoughts, your feelings, and everything else that goes with it.
So
there are people who are together and they don't, and they're not.
Generally don't. But
I was just going to say there are a lot of people who are together and they don't, and they're not intimate.
Again, my world.
Yeah.
Yes, they're the people I see all the time, and you go, how do you stay in a marriage where there hasn't been intimacy for 20 years? And again, I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about the way you look and how you converse.
Share ideas. Share.
Yes.
Yeah.
And most of all, care.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
I like that. The feeling of being cared for far outweighs being told you're cared for. So, you meet with couples and she'll go, yes, but, I cook his dinner every night. And yes, but I buy him her birthday present. Well, that actually doesn't feel like love. That just is you doing practical things.
It's a ritual, isn't it?
Yes. He actually wants you to hold his hand in public. He actually wants you to look at him with love and hold him. He doesn't necessarily want to get you into bed. But, I think we just overlook that men actually want to be held as well.
Cannot argue with any of that. Cannot argue with any of that. And rest assured that the people who are listening will reach out and talk to you, Rae. They'll say,
they do.
Rae Bonney, we need to speak.
Or, unfortunately, the extreme feminists don't like me very much, but that's okay.
It's all right. We can shake the cage and make it uncomfortable for everybody.
Well, I'm not always right either.
That's okay.
Yeah, because I love that I get up every day and I learn something new.
That's part of why I do what I do. I mean,
You have a quote, actually,
what's
and
the
I
quote?
read it, and it goes like this.
Go on.
It takes nothing to join the crowd. It takes everything to stand alone.
And that's what we've done. That's what I've done. And, encouraged by my father and my mother.
I want you to be impressed by my research as well. I'm
seriously impressed, because that's one of those things that I put out in the midst of the early days of the COVID, when everyone, was like, follow the leader. No. If we want to make an impact, if we want our leaders, to actually stand up and offer us a vision, something for tomorrow, but not just immediately tomorrow, but the day after that as well. I think too many of our leaders, male and female, short term. I want them to be thinking longer. I want them to inspire us, to help us be aspirational. And that's why I said...
What's the difference between aspirational and inspirational?
I can inspire you, but I want you to aspire to be better. So to me, it's your personal focus. I've always aspired to be the best broadcaster I could be. I remember Bruce Gingell said, "What do you want to be?" Yeah, I said, "I want to be the best broadcaster, best communicator I can be." And that's been my quest. I haven't been the best. That's left for others. That's not a term I ever want to use. I leave that for others.
Somebody actually did say that on LinkedIn during our post the other night.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. That's their view. That's their perspective, and they're welcome to it. I'm not going to challenge them at that, but that's not what I set out to do. When we built this platform that was the newsroom, Peter Hanrahan wanted me to be myself. He didn't want me to model what I did on anybody else. The only person I thought was the best broadcaster I'd ever seen was, the great American CBS broadcaster, who I remember seeing broke the news of John F. Kennedy's assassination. And he did it in the most wonderfully natural way. There was no, he didn't have to lower his voice. He didn't have to look with gravitas at the camera, as so many newsreaders seem to think they have to do. If you understand what you're talking about, and you look at the camera, and you tell the camera what you know, the audience will absolutely engage immediately. But you know what the problem is? We have too many people reading an auto cue instead of telling you the news.
Oh, gosh.
And that's the difference.
I remember it would have been almost 10 years ago, my first public speaking gig with Beyond Blue. I'm an ambassador for Beyond Blue.
Bravo. Well done.
And so I had 2 months to prepare this speech, and I wrote it down and I practiced it. And I was at Jeff's shed, got up, and there was about 1,000 people in the audience, my first gig.
Yeah, no intimidation.
No, little George, he was only a kid at the time, so he was my wingman. So it was the whole green room set up. So I was pretty amped up by the time I got on the stage.
Correct.
And I read this thing as best I could. And I got a standing ovation, so something had happened.
Yep.
But I got off the stage and I said, never, ever again will I read a script when I'm speaking, ever.
There you go.
And I never have.
Well,
and it's exactly what you're saying.
I'm saying something a little bit different. I don't mind if you use a script, but I don't want you to read. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I can't do it because I get lost in it, and I will actually, I will distract myself.
And here's the craft, and this is the craft. The craft is to know the script, right, but not to use it as a Bible. Well, it's the base. It's the base.
I think I've probably spoken now over 1,000 times without a script. I know.
Well, it's probably embedded in your subconscious.
But every time it comes out, it's different.
Well, of course.
Because you're influenced differently by the day. And I actually had to do...
You probably see a face and it'll change your focus.
That's right. Or you meet somebody before you get on stage. I was actually saying to George the other day, I had to go and do a speech at CEDA, which is the Centre for Economic Development here in Australia. And I had to do the Welcome to Country, and it was their Welcome to Country. I have to remember this. And George goes, well, just
do your own.
Just read it. I went, I can't read it. I'm too cool to have a piece of paper. I can't read it. I ended up doing mine.
But the Welcome to Country should be from here.
Yes.
It shouldn't be from there. It should be from the heart.
And I would love to talk about this. We have to go to a break now. but I don't feel like I almost have a right to do it because I don't have a big enough understanding of why we do this, and I don't think I know enough about our Indigenous people to respectfully give that justice. It's not that I won't do it, because I absolutely will, but I need to create time for myself to be, because I don't think our schools still aren't educating our kids.
No.
In our Indigenous, and we're just given these tokenry things that really just don't cut it, and I just feel like it's so condescending to just do something because that's an expectation of what we have to do, rather than actually having an actual reason from your heart to do it.
The national anthem that we have at the moment is one that I struggle with because it was an invention. It was something that Bob Hawke ran up as a top song, and it won a contest. And about half a dozen years later, 8 or 9 years later, someone decided they're going to put it up and make it, our national anthem. That's not how you do a national anthem. If you want to hear a national anthem, one that stirs you and lifts you and means something, listen to the New Zealand national anthem, listen to the South African national anthem, and imagine this is the home of apartheid, and they have come up since then with an anthem that's magnificent. And listen to the Greek national anthem, which is just, when I sing the first few bars, which Bert Newton allowed me to do on Good Morning Australia when Greece won the European Championship in 2004 against all the odds. We had people complaining. How dare he sing the Greek national? Why doesn't he sing the Israeli national anthem? Because it was Greece that won the European title.
Oh, gosh.
So, I mean, people can be inane and silly about a host of things.
That's right.
At the end of the day, we were just having fun and we were being spontaneous. And I was on the street. I was in Lonsdale Street with thousands of people who'd been there from 4 o'clock in the morning at a street party hosted by the Mayor, John Sow, and Brax, the Premier, and the Premier Brax. And they all wanted to be Greek for 5 minutes. And someone on air thought, how dare we allow Donikian to do that? I thought, there you go, more of the same.
Maybe I should have cued the Greek national anthem next, but
hey, no,
but we don't. In fact, I think Steve Brax's son is coming on my show later on in the year.
Has he?
He has a lot to say about mental health, and
hey, good on him.
He's done a lot of work. But we're at our next very special guest song request.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a clue.
Yes.
Think bangers and mash mixed with bolognese.
To me, it reminds me of an island in the sun, and it's Australia. That's the island, and it's Demis. Surely not.
How could that be? Bangers and mash.
Ed Sheeran.
Yes.
Oh, for goodness' sake.
You're English and you're Italian.
Correct. And spaghetti. Yeah, correct. Yeah. I was daydreaming.
Yeah, no, you were.
I was hoping you'd go there, but clearly you've gone to the choice music. This is gorgeous.
We
perfect.
Get there.
The perfect harmony, isn't it?
Perfect symphony.
Oh, it's.
So why?
I think they're both in harmony.
Why have you chosen this? Just because you like
it? Because Bocelli for me is one of those remarkable artists that has never allowed himself to think of himself as anything but gifted. He's a beautifully engaging singer who he doesn't have to do anything, just opens his mouth and the rest is magic. And I remember seeing him live, and it was just a joy, a joy. The music is a wonderful bit of music, and Ed Sheeran is one smart dude. Anybody who can end up doing a walk-on in the biggest television show in the world, Game of Thrones, and sing a song on the Game of Thrones, and end up doing a series of duets with Beyonce and Bocelli, is one smart cookie cat. And I wanted to pay homage.
Yeah. Well, here it is. It's Ed Sheeran and Andre Bocelli with
Perfect Symphony.
Perfect Symphony, because I haven't got my glasses on. Don't go away, folks. You're listening to 94.1 FM.
Isn't that great? Isn't that just great?
It is just beautiful. In fact, Chris O'Reilly, who chimed in before, he gave that song to me.
It's a beautiful
He
song.
sent it to me, I don't know when it was, maybe a year or so ago, and I'd not heard it. And we exchanged songs, you know. And I've known him since I was a kid.
It is sheer poetry.
Mm.
And when you have the two voices coming together.
Sheer and poetry.
Sheer and poetry. Very good. Bonney effort. That to me is, again, a wonderful coupling of a smart young operator, and one of the classic. It's like I was in Italy for the World Cup in 1990.
Oh.
And the finale was the Three Tenors. They were introduced to the world for the first time.
Yeah.
Right? Bocelli, Domingo, and Guerra. Suddenly, they're appearing in this magnificent setting, singing songs, and people going, "We want more." Mm. And there were others saying, "Mate, it's opera." No. It was three engaging characters showing you their mastery of music and their art form. Mm. And they launched 1,000 voices, 1,000 tenors. And we've seen it. There are so many...
Are they all still around?
Pacelli's certainly around. Pavarotti is gone.
Yeah.
Carrera is still with us, as is Placido Domingo. Those two of the three great tenors are still with us, but Pavarotti, who I saw on half a dozen occasions, was just something else. Just something else. Yeah. And to think he made his early efforts in Australia, touring Australia with a great group of singers. And that was where he cut his teeth. Mm. It's just wonderful stuff.
I always wonder what it feels like being those people. You know, I know what it feels like being me, but you can never know what it feels like being somebody else and having that influence or that gift that, you know, that you open your mouth and that stuff just comes out.
Yeah, look, that's years and years of training. That is, you think of a great pianist, you think of a great designer, you think of something, it's within them. They transcend their art form, or they actually bring it to... Working with Graham Kennedy, people would say to me, "Oh, what was Graham like?" Well, Graham was actually the most fastidious and hard-working person in television.
Yes.
And everyone thinks it was all off the top. No. The best ad-lib is the prepared ad-lib. And yet, he would make it look like it was straight out of his head. Now, that's the art. He was a great vaudevillian who understood just how important it was. And Mike McCall-Jones, who was the great writer of that series, would say to me after the show, "What part did I write again?" He wrote it all. But Graham would take it, would beat it up, would twist it, would mangle it until it could fit him. And that's what people don't understand. The great modern comedians, the great improvisers, the people who do improv, that's what they do. They take a script or they take an idea and they twist it around to fit that moment, and then they make magic.
Oh, well, I'm actually watching a series called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, yeah. She's exceptional.
And they feature Lenny Bruce and, and his work.
She's channeling Bruce.
Yeah. And it's just... I'm completely fascinated just with her deliveries.
Well, that young actress has done an exceptional job.
Yes.
But what a brilliant script. Oh, so it shows yet again that without the framework, without the ensemble, because that ensemble
every
cast,
character is
every little bit
magic.
of that show reeks class.
Yeah.
And they've captured the essence of that time.
Just everything.
Now, you wouldn't remember it, but I do. And that's how they dressed. Yeah. That's how they carried themselves.
That's how I dress.
You actually look very... Did you dress up for me, or are you going somewhere out?
I'm going somewhere, but that's for later in the show.
Okay. I just thought,
thank
you very much.
Do you want to just jump on this side of the panel, George, and you can just do the show, you know?
I don't have a problem.
You would love to.
I can do it from here.
Have you done much radio, like in terms of producing radio, or just normally?
I stood in for John on the ABC a number of years ago.
John Brown.
No.
Actually, do know a John Brown.
You know who John is on the ABC for years and years and years, and stepped down. It'll come to you.
Oh God.
I'm not going to make it easy.
On ABC.
On ABC Melbourne.
Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that.
Yes,
because
you will.
I do have something else because we're talking about communication.
Yes.
And there's all different ways we can communicate. You're talking about Di's business called how do you say
Partenaire.
Partenaire.
The French for partners.
Okay, so that's all about how we communicate. How
Yes.
we get together.
Yep.
But when I was posting on social media about our very special radio show, a woman called Michelle Ashley chimed in.
Yes.
And because I was going, yeah, George is ace, whatever. And she said he's also the first to be working alongside Quality Access Provision, which is having a deaf person deliver the news in sign language.
Correct.
Now, she's the daughter of Diana Ashley.
Who was my superstar.
Yes.
You know, I say that because what we asked of Diana at that time was unheard of. We wanted her to be herself. And, of course, it's very difficult. A sign reader doesn't read your script. Can't possibly. There are too many words.
Yes.
So they have to design or rewrite, refashion what you want to say. And there was one magic moment where we had a major muck-up on air and we had a technical glitch, which meant we had to pause the program, and we said to Diana, and it was all sign, we'll be back in a moment, we've got a problem. And she started filing her nails just because she could.
Yeah.
And the trouble was they came back earlier than she imagined and earlier than we'd been told. We crashed back in to Diana and I in the newsroom about to do a news update. And it took us an eternity, or so it seemed. It seemed like it took us an eternity to get her eyes, to capture her eyes, and to say to her, no, we're back on air. Start reading with George. Start signing. And she's busy doing this, And I'm kneeing her under the table. And, of course, we used to do that to have fun with one another. And she thought I was being playful. So she's shush me away. And I'm going, no. And I'm going, welcome back. It's George Donikian, Diana Ashley with the SBS News Update. And I can see that she's going, and I just started to read. And finally she woke up and she could see the floor manager on his knees trying to get in her eye line going, no.
Off you go.
ITV saw it and asked if we could use the vision for their new season program, It'll Be All Right on the Night. And we were paid a princely sum of money in pounds, thank you very much. And it was well received for a little faux pas that,
turned into something else.
Turned into something much, much more.
Well, I did a bit of delving, as I do.
Yes, as you do.
And from the history vaults, and I actually found a little clip. I don't know how this is going to convert on radio, but it's actually Diana signing
and me reading.
And you reading. So there are a few gaps where there's a bit of silence, but I'll just fill in those gaps. But I really want to play it because I think it's absolutely magic. So here goes. I'm going to leave our mics on so we can
go right ahead.
We can talk through it.
Sure.
Here we go.
We here have dug through our archives and have found some very old footage of a person presenting the news on television. That woman is Diana Ashley, and her job was to stand next to the newsreader and sign the news.
She actually sat.
We're going to have a discussion with Diana, but first let's watch this little snippet.
So here's you and Diana.
How fantastic.
And she's signing, and I can see you with...
They sitting or standing?
She's... actually... You could be standing.
Oh, that would have been maybe an update.
So he's back again.
G'day, Di. Just wondering if you can share with us how your involvement in signing the news came about.
That was you.
Well, the sitting Prime Minister of the time, Mr. Malcolm Fraser, had travelled to America and was sitting in his room one night watching the TV news.
Without trousers.
And noticed that there was picture-in-picture of a hearing interpreter interpreting the news. And he wondered why America had this facility, yet Australia did not. So upon his return back here in Australia, he asked the broadcast channels if they could then provide that access.
Correct.
But the stipulation was that it was to be a deaf person. It wasn't to be picture-in-picture. He wanted a person there next to the broadcaster. SBS raised their hand to facilitate this service.
As we should.
They then approached the Deaf Society to find a deaf person to present the news.
And it was
The
Diana.
Deaf Society in turn then approached me, and that's how my involvement began as a broadcaster, signing the news.
How fabulous.
It first began in 1980, and at that time I was actually pregnant.
She was.
So I worked up until I gave birth. I took 4 weeks off to look after my newborn. A few deaf people replaced me over that time, and then I came back on board and worked there for a further 3 years.
How fantastic. Class act. Great woman. And
I think
cope
there's,
with,
there's
and
just
cope
one
with
little
me.
bit
Oh,
more,
yeah, go on.
more to go, I think.
Go on,
Just
go on.
here we go.
At that stage in 1980, it was actually 0/28. It wasn't SBS
right.
as we know it today.
Channel O and
It was
28.
after that 3-year stint that there was a federal election held and government changed hands. The incoming government decided to change the profile
Correct.
and change the names of some of
Correct.
the broadcasters like SBS. They then laid off some staff, people like me and a few of my colleagues, and that's the end of the story.
That's right.
And that's it. That's it.
That's right.
How great is that? Did that bring back a
Yeah, it brought back some memories and reminded me yet again of, how we should have tried harder to do more.
the bloody government?
Well, it was a change of government. It was the arrival of Bob Hawke had stepped in and
Yep.
taken, the cudgels, and it was a new time. They wanted to freshen things up. And we also had a change of management at SBS, and we'd lost the original team. And Gingell had left. Bruce had left. Bruce had been the...
Is he still with us?
No.
Oh, okay.
The late great Bruce Gingell is no longer with us. David Gingell is alive.
Yep.
His son, but Bruce was the very first face we saw on Australian television in 1956 when he said, "Welcome to television," and Channel 9. My name is Bruce Gingell, and he was the man that I walked up to at a function about 6 months before the emergence of this new entity, Channel O and 28. And I said to him during a lull when they were handing out the egg sandwiches and some tea, "Mr. Gingell, do you think there might be a role for someone like me in this new television venture?" And he said, "Who do you work for?" I said, "Keith Graham." He said, "Oh, I know Keith." And I went, gulp. I thought, oh, hang on a minute, they might compare notes. What am I doing here asking for a new job? He rang Keith and talk about wonderful people.
Yeah.
Keith Graham said, "Yes, George is one of ours. In fact, if you think, Bruce, the television might be his strong suit, you're welcome. I'll send him to do an audition on Saturday. But understand, he's one of ours and he's got a job with us for as long as he wants."
Wow.
So what an endorsement and what a fabulous backstop.
So you
I
can
had.
go back now.
Correct. No, Keith, the late Keith Graham was killed in a car accident years later. He's the man that sparked the arrival of Oz Stereo. He was the guy that created some magic things, and he was a marvellous professional and a great man.
Yep.
And it was the two of them that thought enough of me to say, "All right, let's see what he's got." And I walked in, did the audition, and they said, "The job is yours." And I didn't know what that job meant because they still hadn't decided whether they would actually, if they could manage enough money to create a newsroom,
All right.
which they promptly did. And I was their first anchor. A remarkable time.
Yeah.
Never to be repeated.
What year was that?
1980.
80, yeah.
Yeah, 1980.
Now, Mark Brown has come up with a question.
Oh, Brownie's got a
He's
question
got a
for
question.
me. Okay, Mark, what
I'm
is
gonna
it?
interpret this how I like.
Go. Oh,
He said, apart from Rae Bonney,
yep.
who is your favourite celebrity and why? He didn't
My
actually
favourite
say.
celebrity
He said nothing
other
about
than
me.
Rae. Big call. Favourite celebrity. Oh, there's so many good people. I'm going to take a moment and pause and say to you that my favourite celebrity was someone we lost recently, because he proved throughout his life that he could take a negative and make it a positive.
Warnie.
Shane Warne. I remember young Shane Warne when he came to South Australia to play in the Cricket Academy, and they said, "Forget it, kid, you haven't got it." And I remember and knew very well Terry Jenner. And Jenner said, "I've got a project here." in that project is this kid, and I think he could be anything. And let me tell you, if you reflect on the setbacks and where he came from and some of the things, and he again, he wanted to play football. Does that sound familiar? and injury or lack of talent, some would say, denied him that opportunity. So he had to go to his B sport, which turned out to be cricket. And for me, my B sport was the media. Yeah. That was my go-to. So for me, he would have. I always marvelled at how.
Did you know him well?
No, I didn't know him well. We'd met a couple of times, but I knew the nine team.
Yeah.
I respect enormously Ian Chappell. I think he's one very, very clever guy, and made from a different cloth, cut from a different cloth, from a different time, and he was. It's so important. If there was no Ian Chappell, there wouldn't have been World Series cricket. And if we didn't have Tony Gregg, there'd be no World Series cricket. And they were both mates, and they were both colleagues of mine at Nine. Blessed to know them. And they helped to shape this young boy and reminded him. And Kerry Packer, who was tough as teak and didn't suffer fools, saw enough in this young man to back him. The rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I think,
And it's his funeral today.
Yeah, so a bit of...
his private funeral.
Yeah. Some little bit
special,
of...
A special guy.
Yeah.
To show us that you can make a faux pas. You can make a few mistakes, but at the end of the day, if the real stuff in here is true, and Shane was...
But they're only faux pas and mistakes based on what society expects or the rules or whatever that might be. I remember... my son George played soccer, well, football.
The world game,
the real football.
The real football.
For many years, and Shane used to come and watch his nephew because they were in the same.
Oh,
they were in
right.
the same league, and Shane was always on his phone.
Yep.
And he was always smoking.
And let me tell you, between his smoking and his fabulous eating habits, that probably went a long way to shortening his career.
Yeah.
The smoking was, he never stopped smoking.
Yeah, well, heart disease is the biggest killer of men in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hands down. Yeah. So, I think if anything that he's leaving behind in terms of, having men be more educated about their health and permission to be healthy, I think that's a good thing. I think Shane would be pretty happy with
There's
that.
a great, great Hollywood character called Yul Brynner who did an ad when he was dying of cancer. And the ad consisted of him looking death in the face and saying, "Don't smoke." The problem is, you see, smoking is like one of those things. It's a habit, and we are horrific at habits. If you establish a habit, a good one or bad one, it's very hard to get rid of it. And the tobacco companies still use it as a fabulous tool. It's super sexy to smoke, if you believe it.
Not so much here. I've done a lot of work with Philip Morris here in Australia.
Yep.
And we can't see it as much here, but in Europe, cigarette smoking is still extraordinarily cool.
Well, the vapors that they use today, it's smoking of a sort.
Yes.
So nothing's changed.
No.
And the other thing is too, if you think that there's no smoking advertising, rubbish. Any cinema movie you see or any series you see, they're all smoking. The characters that you fall in love with.
Yes.
And you go, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
They all smoke.
Oh, Marvellous Mrs. Maisel. There's lots of smokers on there. But I'm saying to people lately, I think you probably die of poverty before you die of cancer. These, with the cost of cigarettes and petrol.
Well, I used to sell a packet of cigarettes at my father's service station when I was serving on the Bowsers in those early days, learning
how much was
to accommodate the public.
A litre then?
33 cents a packet of cigarettes. 33 cents.
How much was petrol?
Petrol, for $1, you could get 2.5 gallons.
Yeah.
For $1. Now, it's what is it, $2.30 plus?
Yeah.
A litre.
Well, I remember...
Not a gallon, a litre.
Many years ago, I worked for, when I was 16 or 17, worked for Capel Court Investment Bank for the chief economist. So we had a lot to do with the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, and it's a pretty posh job I had. Anyway, he was travelling in Western Australia, and he would handwrite to me things because I was his secretary.
Yes.
And I still got this letter at home that says, "You would not believe petrol in Western Australia is 30 cents a litre." And that was so expensive.
There you go. There you go.
This is back in the 80s.
In Europe at the moment, it's $5 or $6 a litre. So think about the impact on those lives, those families, and how they get around. And of course, we have the challenges right now where Russia is, bombarding Ukraine. Why? I mean,
look, that's another show.
It's a whole new show. Have we got time for a whole new show?
Oh, look, I can't really make sense of it myself. I was on the train the other day and I was sitting opposite a woman and we were going through the city loop and she asked me directions because I said, "Oh, you're not from Melbourne?" She said, "No,
Yep.
she was from South Australia." But I know she had an accent. And I said, "Oh, where are you from originally?" She said, "From Russia."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "It's really interesting. What's your take on what's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "I don't support what's going on." She said, "But we don't have the full story. There's so much
Correct.
more.
Correct.
And there are reasons.
Yeah.
The whole world's just going, this is just barbaric and it's senseless." But she said there are actually reasons. And she tried to describe them to me. And my ears were very open to listening because I love to learn about, we just have this unconscious bias that goes off, straight away. So I wanted to challenge that inside of myself. But I really just couldn't make sense.
The media today, which when you consider how many smart young men and women are working in the media today, they've never had better tools. The problem is the newsrooms are no longer staffed by an array of different tiered professionals who can add so much to the youngsters and the young men and women who are doing tremendous work. And unless you have that perspective, unless you have that person in there with a bit of experience to say to you, no, don't go down that path. Have a look at this. This is what happened in 1990. This is what happened in 1980. They can't possibly need to go to their resource centre to get something. The resource has got to be in there, in the newsroom, alive and well, and engaging with them every day.
Yeah.
And those newsrooms today are bereft of that talent, and our newsrooms are not what they once were. When the news in Australia was at its best, 7, 9 and 10 were fierce competitors, and the ABC was, steeled and filled with some great old hard heads, and SBS had a group of professionals who cared to give you yet another perspective. And if you don't have that perspective, it's like you buy a series of newspapers. Only by travelling the world do you get a sense of how much politics fills your newspapers. You go to Europe and you can get a left-wing paper, you can get an extra left-wing paper, and you can get one that says communist. You can also get one to the centre, one to the right of centre, one to the further right of centre, one the other end, where it's the fascists are writing everything. So we in this country have never looked at our papers, never addressed our radio stations or television stations and said, what line are they pushing down our throat? Because we've tried, more often than not, to be as reasonable and as centred as possible.
Yeah. And thank God for community radio where we...
community radio is the other adjunct. It adds another layer, which is just terrific. And we need Channel 31 and its programming.
Have you been on there with Tiffany Cook yet?
No, I'm waiting for Tiffany to invite me to roll with the punches, but clearly she's on a good wicket and she has a bunch of stars that are younger and sharper looking.
Oh, well, I'll pick her up on that because I'm going on the 3rd of...
Well, you'll kill it. You'll just cruise it.
Yeah.
Just watch out for that lethal bloodhound she has. It's the most beautiful puppy dog.
Yeah.
Is it a recovery? Is it a recovery dog?
A rescue dog. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to ask.
Coach has been with her for a while.
Yeah, Coach is the gold mine. Yeah. He's the anchor.
Yes,
he's the anchor.
She does a wonderful job.
Oh, by the way, you know why they call them news anchors? Because at the first sign of trouble, they can toss them over the side.
Oh, really?
You like that?
Is that true?
Of course it is. It's true. That's what happens. If a newsroom is struggling.
Yeah.
Remember when Channel 9's Today Show was a problem?
Yes.
They got rid of Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah, they thought, Stefanovic, no.
Yeah.
but they brought him back.
Yeah, that's right.
They gave him time to refresh,
Yeah.
lose some weight or gain some weight or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a whole new.
Is it
That's a
yo-yo?
whole new question.
Yeah.
But the girls were given an opportunity, and again, two terrific broadcasters, but they needed more support.
Yeah.
You need to change the product. If you're going to change the talent, you can't just cut them out and stick them on that page. Create a whole new show.
Yeah.
They didn't have the courage of their convictions, and of course, it looks like both women failed. That wasn't the case.
There you go. And
Wrong.
I have issue with that as well, of this gender equity thing where we have to, have a certain amount of women. And I've just seen so many women set up to fail because they've been put into positions that they're not suited to just for the gender equity piece.
Correct.
And it's not fair. It makes these very talented women look terrible. So, best person for the job, I say.
Touche.
So, oh gosh, we're supposed to be on a break at the moment, George, and we're at our third very special guest song request.
Oh, now no more clues required.
There's no one. There's no cryptic clue. But I know you've got quite a personal story attached.
Yeah,
to this
I was
one
in
as well.
Queensland. I was in Queensland, and I heard this album. I was thinking to myself, what a magic place. I'm in the tropic wonderland, far north Queensland, and it's like every day is like living in this island full of just magic and music and the sun. So when I heard Happy to Be on an Island in the Sun, Demis Roussos, I thought, I'm going to buy the album. And I did.
And you actually met him as well.
I've met Demis, and that was quite something again.
Yeah.
Different background to me, but some Greek in him, some French in him, some Egyptian in him. He was a character, larger than life, as we know.
Where did you meet him?
Sorry?
Where did you meet him?
Met him in Sydney at SBS.
Yeah, okay.
They brought him into the studio, and met him years later at 9 when he came in as a guest on the midday show.
Did he have a caftan on?
It wasn't a caftan. No, the first time perhaps it was a style of caftan.
Yeah.
It was more like a long coat.
So you called it a caftan, whereas I'm a caftan.
Well, it's
Caftan.
all right. It's just a little usage. It's like listening to a South Australian will talk about a swimming pool,
Yeah.
not a swimming pool.
Ah, right.
So you can hear, if you listen carefully,
Yeah.
language is full of lyrics if you listen.
It's wonderful language.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
it's like the Icelandic volcano.
When we come back, George, I'm going to talk a bit more about me, what I've got on.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're going to come to the Armenian Film Festival with us.
Yeah. When is
First week of June. 3, 4 and 5. Come on, you've got to be
I'm in
there.
Sydney.
Come to the gala.
I'm speaking at the Sydney Build Expo on the 2nd of June, so I'll be back by the 3rd.
Great.
Actually,
Come to the gala on the 4th.
Oh, well, if you send me the details.
I'll invite you.
Oh, very good.
We'll talk about
I'll
it.
talk about what to wear.
Great.
Anyway, what is this song called again? Because I can't say I haven't got my glasses on.
Happy to Be on an Island in the Sun.
Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back. You're listening to 94.1 FM, 3WBC. There
Just
he was.
like that.
Just fade him out. He still had another couple
Well, he
of
did
seconds
fade
to
out.
go.
He did fade out.
Yeah.
We saw him lose so much weight, and then he didn't survive much longer. He was part of a tremendously gifted musical group in Europe, Aphrodite's Child.
Oh, right.
And the other part of that was the guy called Vangelis,
Yes.
or
yes.
Evangelos Papathanasiou, who wrote Chariots of Fire.
Yes.
And if you go and see Chariots of Fire, Evangelos is the opening titles. They have his full name.
Ah.
And I only know that because Kerry Packer
Yep.
paid for Chariots of Fire to be made.
I didn't know that either. So
he
you
was,
saw some,
he was there at the world premiere.
saw some great trivia.
Oh, fantastic stuff.
Now, George, I like to, because some of the topics that we talk about on this show can be triggering for people.
Yes.
We get down into the roots of things sometimes. So
Sure.
just like to remind people that if any of our discussions have brought up uncomfortable feelings for people, please remember help's there. So here's a few options for support. Lifeline is 131114. Suicide callback service is 1300 659 467, and emergency services are 000. So if it's an emergency, you phone 000 because that's what they're there for.
I yearn for a day when we don't have to provide that information, but it's great to know it's there.
Well, there's always going to be emergency, you know.
I'd like to think that it's the aspirational part of me. I'd like to think there will come a time when we will let go of some of our, idiosyncrasies and fears and insecurities and actually reach out and help one another all the time.
Well, yes.
Yeah? Because you walk in a street and you can see good people.
Yep.
Yeah? I miss the days when you'd walk down the street and say, morning, good afternoon, good day, how are you? And that was all the time.
That can save a life. By looking somebody in the eye and just saying good morning,
Yeah.
you've got no idea. That iceberg analogy, you've got no idea.
A little awkward with a mask, but you can still say,
You can do it with
"G'day."
your you can do it with your eyes. You can do it with your hand. In fact, I was I am doing work with a butcher chain, Canning's Free Range Butchers, very ethical, wonderful organisation. So I'm working with butchers. Like, they're tough.
Hey,
They're tough.
listen, where would we be without them?
I know. But I walk into the room and they go, who that for you? Like, in my dress and everything like that. And they're all like, hey, yeah.
Exactly.
And I said, right, I'm going to make this really short. It was a 4-hour workship that I was going to be delivering to them. But I said, I can cut this really, really short. So we're talking about mental health and how we can create an environment that, supports good mental health and well-being. Don't be a
Yep.
beep.
Yep.
Don't be. And I walked out the room. And they're going, did you actually say that word,
Yep.
the C word?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Yeah, I did. And I said, there is no bigger truth than that. If you are kind to people, or at least nothing, just don't be disrespectful, don't be mean, because you just don't know the effect that has on someone else.
And someone who knew the effect of every word that he uttered was Graham Kennedy. And Graham would also shock you, and he also worked really, really hard at helping all those people on his show that worked in the shadows.
Yeah.
Think about that. Everyone in television, if they're not on screen, works in the shadows.
Yeah.
The producers, the assistants, the floor crews, the cameramen and women. Yeah?
Yeah.
And Graham made sure that he entertained them and kept them on their toes. You're doing a nightly show every night of the week, all
How do
year.
you come up with material?
How do you these blasé professionals who've been doing it for 20 years, how do you get them to focus on every show, on every frame? You scare the living daylights out of them. And he would walk in beautifully dressed to the nines, no trousers, except for a jockstrap. And he would always pretend to stand up so that, you would see him without trousers. And, of course, if that ever happened, we'd lose our television license.
Yes.
So the fear kept them on their toes. And people would say to me, he's a dastardly boss. No, he was a very smart operator. He knew how to keep everybody engaged
I like
in doing
that.
something
That's
special.
a very novel way in engagement,
Yeah, well,
isn't
that
it?
was vaudeville.
Speaking of mental health, George,
Yep.
as soon as I get off air, number one daughter, Rose, is going to collect me
Fantastic.
to chauffeur me to number one son, George's mental health charity event. Now, he founded Eat the Issue, which is his charity, back in 2017 at the tender age of 19, sort of 20. And it's a charity that helps raise awareness around mental health and a call to action around creating better environments in the hospitality industry. He's been in the industry since he was 12. He was on Junior MasterChef when he was a little boy.
Fantastic.
So he did all of his apprenticeship with George Columbaris. So
Great.
he learned Greek very, very quickly
There
in
you
his
go.
career.
He's probably half Greek.
He's a little bit Italian, so he's
okay.
nonna. So
Right.
today he's teamed up with an organisation, Black Hearts and Sparrows. You might know them. They're a brother and sister team, and they, Paul and Jessica, they created their business as a retort to the common assumption that a good wine must be expensive. So that specialty wine, they have all these specialty wine stores. I've had an event there in Richmond, but
Are they all clean skins?
No.
No.
They've got a whole range of stuff. Like,
Oh, wow.
I don't know how they keep their stock, but they're run by They're run by pretentious and they don't want to be pretentious
No,
and
no,
intimidating. So they showcase all the new stuff. But today's function is at their new function
Venue.
space called
Yep.
Perry's, a refreshment club. It's a private event space combining old world charisma with new age charm. Anyway, I'm going to cheat a little here and quote directly from chef himself, George.
Yep.
This is what he said about the event. Words can't describe how excited I am to work on this project with Black Hearts and Sparrows. A couple of weeks ago when Paul reached out to ask me if I'd be interested, I relished the idea of being their first resident chef in their brand new space in Smith Street. To have the opportunity to work with a company I love so much, not only for their incredible beverages, but also the kindness and generosity I feel whenever I walk into any of their stores. This seemed too good to pass up. So on the 20th of March, I'll be at Perry's Refreshment Club, cooking some food I grew up eating with my Sicilian grandmother, Anne. Some of my fondest food memories came from spending school holidays in her then Ringwood home making pasta and coletta. These moments I'll cherish forever. I'm excited to share with you a piece of my family's heritage over a long lunch filled with lots of laughter and generous hospitality. A portion of the proceeds from the event will be donated to Tip Jar, and they're a fund dedicated to helping support the future generation of hospitality workers here in Australia and raise funds to distribute between the two charity partners, Smart Meals, an initiative run by Street Smart Australia, and Scarf. And their goal is to have the dual impact of providing job training to vulnerable people.
Awesome.
To help end the cycles of poverty and homelessness.
Awesome.
So there you go.
More power
so
to them. On you, Georgie.
On you, George. Yeah, I'm very proud of all of my kids, actually. But my next show falls on Easter Sunday. So I'm still deciding how to crack that egg, literally. I don't know who wants to turn up here on Easter Sunday. I will be here.
Well, if you offer them Easter eggs, ones that you make, the coloured ones.
Oh, do you know what? The only
Wouldn't
reason
that
I
be
would ever want to marry a Greek man, I mean, you're taken, but
Thank you.
Greek Easter. I mean,
Greek Easter is a special time.
Oh, amazing.
Armenian Easter
is better?
no. They are look. They share a church in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
It's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It's the oldest Christian church it's the oldest Orthodox church in Christendom. I'll get it right.
That is
and it's shared by the Armenians and the Greeks. And at Easter time, comes midnight, the Armenians move out, the Greeks come in, or the Greeks move out, the Armenians come in. And it can be hell, shock and awe.
Yeah.
And they use all manner of things to chide and encourage or discourage the other. Yeah. It's remarkable. They're both Orthodox Christian nations. The Armenians adopted Christianity first, and the Greeks followed. Yeah. And that's been a sore point forever and a day. Yeah. But they both nations do Easter in a very special way. Yeah. It's a rich tradition. The foods are marvellous. Yeah. And everything that flows with it. To be in Greece during Easter is just one of the great times. Yeah. And I was in Yerevan filming a 5-part documentary for SBS, as it turned out, a journey through Armenia back in 2018, 2019.
Oh, right.
And that, for me, was the first time I'd been.
Where can we see that?
SBS On Demand, I think, if they still have the rights. Yeah. But it was a 5-part series that I did, an opportunity to see a part of the world that I wanted to share with my father. Yeah. But it wasn't to be. We lost him a few years before. But I love the fact that I got over there. I used a full Armenian crew. Yeah. And they gave me an insight into another culture, some beautiful natural treasures, the history. Look, just as you go through Greece and you find treasures everywhere, Armenia, and this is the former communist, former Soviet Armenia. The real Armenia, the great kingdom of Armenia, no longer exists because much of it has been consumed by Turkey and parts of Georgia. And we're talking about a vast swathe of land that no longer exists between the east and the west. Yeah. And the Armenians happen to be right in the middle of this path, the Silk Road between Asia and Europe. And of course, what happened? They were victims of just about every invader who wanted to invade, including Alexander.
Well, gosh, what?
So it's a rich history.
I'm going to look that up.
Look it up.
On SBS.
You'll go nuts. And I hope it's still available. Journey through Armenia, 5-part, and it was a great opportunity for us to tell a story from an Australian perspective, through my eyes, which scared the hell out of some people. And we've got another one coming up. We're filming in Adelaide, in fact.
All right.
Migrant stories, and it'll be done with through the Greek languages, but it'll be again for either History Channel, National Geographic, or SBS if they have the courage of their convictions.
So who's filming
and
that?
pick it up. We've got a group of professional specialists who are working behind the scenes, preparing as we speak, and I'll be heading over to do the interviews with. It's oral history.
Yes.
Stuff you must never, ever lose.
Yeah.
We talk about, we don't have enough to talk about. We have plenty.
So you might be preparing this for streaming? Maybe.
Yes, I think there is an opportunity for any of the... because they all want content.
Yeah.
Whether it's Stan, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon Prime.
Oh, gosh.
They all want...
We're insatiable, aren't we, when it comes to...
Of course we are.
Like, I don't think people watch movies anymore. They watch series.
They do. People say to me, "Oh, but people aren't watching television." Oh, no. They are. The difference is television now, you can carry it with you.
Yes.
You can.
Oh, I just saw Di there.
There you go.
There she is. Beautiful.
And she's lost those glasses, so don't mention it, right?
Okay, don't mention Di's
They're one-off glasses that she lost, so she had to go find another pair, and it's not quite the same.
Oh. Yeah.
And it sort of resonates to this day. It fills her with great angst.
Well, I hope you find them, Di. I'll be on the lookout. I'm looking at those glasses. If somebody found them, they probably knocked out the lenses and put their own in. So
Probably.
Now, next up, we've got Paula Hogg. Paula Hogg is hosting a lazy Sunday afternoon where she plays a whole range of chilled music for hours on end.
If you could mix or marry the chilled music with great food and some wine, that would be the ultimate program that I'd want to host. Paula, can we do it together?
She wouldn't mind, actually. I'm pretty sure. I think she likes a glass of wine.
There you go. Sip and eat in between the breaks, and there you go.
We're going to love this, George, because I mentioned next Sunday, Easter Sunday, I will be on air.
Right.
I think I do have a guest who's a wonderful guest. But on Sunday, the 15th of May, and you're going to love this, I'm very excited to be hosting a remarkably talented athlete, an all-round great gal, Alison Downey. She's an Australian sportswoman, most notable for her career as a basketball player with Dandenong Rangers, but then moved to Aussie Rules and played for Carlton.
My team.
Back in 2017, and now she plays for Collingwood.
Oh, well, it's scary that she's gone from the great Carlton to Collingwood.
Well, you might want to tune in and hear about her experience at Carlton, And I met her we were both speaking at a Beyond Blue event at Sandringham Football Club back in 2018, I think. And
how old is she?
She is late 30s.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I know Rachel Spawn, who played for the Opals and played for the Lightning, and is a super woman on about 50 different levels, seriously competitive. And I remember in a charity game, she gave me the cold shoulder, literally in my jaw. And I said, "Rachel, we're mates." She said, "Yes, but we're playing competition now, and this is serious." So Michelle Dandecker, Natalie Bourlays, Rachel Spawn, and they obliterated the boys in this basketball. We played half a game of basketball, half a game of netball, and they ate us up. They just creamed. It showed me yet again, if I ever doubted, just how much skill our basketballers and our netballers have.
Oh, yes.
And the media boys, it was a media team put together. We thought it would be a bit of fun. Well, we were a sick and sorry lot and a beaten group afterwards too. We looked at one another and went, "Why did we say yes?"
Yeah.
We got shown up big time. And that shows you just how much talent is on the court. And you've got to pay it homage. It's like our cricket team at the moment. That's a seriously gifted Australian women's cricket team.
Yes.
Yeah?
They're doing very well.
And now I want the Matildas to do something special as we near a Women's World Cup next year in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, you'll have to be there. You'll have to bring Rose and George, get them down.
Well, I see Paula has arrived in Studio One, so we better kick off, or kick on, or whatever we're doing next.
Can I say thank you?
You can, or I can say thank you to you
No,
as well.
I prefer to say thank you.
Well, we can both say thank you, but
All right, thank you.
It has been such a pleasure having this time with you, or spending a moment, or creating a moment, whatever we've done. I know everyone that's tuning in and chiming in has really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for not only this, but everything that you have done and continue to do in the world to make it a better place, more people like you. So I'm going to take it out with my own special song, and this is dedicated to my son George.
And what's the song?
It's Elton John and Kiki D, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. So get away from the mother and son thing. As a little boy, George and I always used to do this duo in the car. Always. So whenever
Does he dance with you?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. He doesn't live at home now, so I see him regularly, but we don't often do the duet. But
so this one's for George.
This one's for George. So go well today, my son. I'm so proud of you, and everyone else. Please take care. Remember, it really is okay to not be okay, and just be nice.
Just be nice.
Just be nice. See you, George.